5 planets align in Pisces. Your soul's next leap starts now. Wow, so much Pisces energy in the sky right now. The pressing question is, what the heck do we do with it along our evolutionary journey? My name is Bryan Colter. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, and we will discuss ways in which this energy can manifest amongst the collective above what would be considered random chance, as this archetypal field of potential is flowing through the planet right now. And based on the free will of each individual, they will act with this energy in accordance with their level of consciousness. So we will discuss some collective elements, but where I want to spend a lot of my time is how can we work with this Pisces on steroids energy right now on a personal level for our own betterment and evolution. With that being said, let's go ahead and bring up the chart. So as you can see here, so many planets in the sign of Pisces. We see the sun and moon right next to each other. I'm creating this video one day before the new moon. The new moon will last about 3 or 4 days after that, the new moon period. So Pisces new moon is going to be an important part of this video. But we also have Saturn in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces. Most significantly, Neptune in Pisces, because Neptune is said to be the modern ruler of this sign. And for those of you who have watched my videos before, you know I've said many times, whenever a planet's in its own sign, it is supercharged. And the Neptune is in a near exact conjunction with the north node of the moon in Pisces. Now, the nodes of the moon, south node and the north node, are linked to the collective karma that's ripened for us now. And as of about a month ago, the nodes finally changed signs, and they spent about 18 and a half months in a sign combination. I'm not going to talk too much about the north node in Pisces in this video. I did a deep dive on the nodal shift about a month ago. I highly recommend you check out that video. If you're interested, at the end of this video, you'll see a little thumbnail pop up on your screen, so you can check that out. So yes, Neptune does rule Pisces, but so does Jupiter. It's one of the few signs in the zodiac that has a dual rulership. So since we have so much Pisces energy, we want to consider the more classical ruler of Pisces, Jupiter. And even if Jupiter was trying to, make itself invisible in the sky, which is pretty hard for the biggest body in the solar system besides the sun, we still have to pay close attention to it. But it's not hiding at all. It's in a very tight square, which is a 90-degree angle to the Pisces new moon itself. Jupiter happens to be in Gemini, in a tight square to Pisces new moon. Now, new moons are always about new beginnings. So once a month, we all experience the new moon. It's a perfect opportunity to leverage your own free will and focused intent and ask yourself the question, what is a new seed I can plant in my life? And it doesn't have to be some monumental shift, gigantic course correction, although it can be. And if you decide to do that during a new moon, is a good time to choose. But it can just be a slight bump, a slight course correction, a baby step in a new direction. And I love that imagery of planting a new seed. So as we talk about Pisces and how that interacts with Jupiter and Gemini, it will give us a sense on powerful ways and intentions to have as we put those new seeds in the ground. But fundamentally, again, new moons are about new beginnings. And to get a deeper level of specificity to you in your own personal journey, it's very helpful to know where you have Pisces in your own personal birth chart. So you look in your own chart and look around this outer wheel here of your own chart and try to find where about 9 degrees of Pisces is in your chart. And then you'll know, okay, that's where that new moon is activating this particular area of my chart. Which house of my chart is it lighting up? And that will help you, give you further data, help you to make a specific new beginning in your life. And if you don't know how to read your own chart, I do sell a 40-minute tutorial on my website. It's called Finding Your Chart. If you can't find it on my website, ask me. I'll give you a direct link in the comments. But yeah, that's a good way to learn. The birth chart, your own personal chart, is a priceless lifelong companion. And if your understanding of it goes along with the current transits of the time, It's a very powerful tool to work with the astrological energy instead of against it. So let's start more broad strokes here. We got so much Pisces, and Pisces is a water sign. We also have Mars in Cancer, which is another water sign. So the 10 planets are 60% water. And also significantly, the other ruler, Jupiter, is an air sign of Gemini. We also have Pluto in Aquarius, another air sign. So mostly water. We'll be talking in a very watery way, but we got to sprinkle in some air. Even though there's only 2 planets in air, we have to heavily consider this Jupiter Sun-Moon square. All water signs are subjective in nature. They are emotional. They represent feelings. Now, if you in your own personal chart have most of your planets in water signs, for example, I would say you're a very emotional person. You were born with a high degree of emotional sensitivity, and most of your tremendous pockets of growth in this current incarnation is going to occur inwardly through your subjective experience of reality. So Pisces is an emotionally sensitive sign, but it's also a psychically sensitive sign because it's known as the mystic and the visionary archetypes. So it is very watery, subjective, but we could also add an additional word of ethereal. It's the sign of ether. Air signs, on the other hand, represent the mental plane, our perception of reality, our thoughts and ideas, our intelligence, and how we communicate. Now, air and water signs are very different from each other, but they do have one strong commonality between them. They both represent higher dimensions of reality. So, for example, water signs are, again, subjectivity. It's also connected to the astral plane or the 4th dimension where emotions actually exist. And then thoughts exist on an even higher dimensional body, if you will, the 5th dimensional body or noetical body, depending on the mystical tradition, they'll call it different things. But thoughts exist on a higher dimension of reality as well. So we can feel our material physical body, we know is here, and we can feel our emotions, but we can't touch them. They're at a higher dimension. We can't touch our thoughts, but we know they exist. So water and air are not physical, but they are a precious part of our lived experience as a soul incarnate. Now, one fundamental law of these higher dimensions is the concept of attraction and repulsion. Like attracts like and opposite repel. So if you have a positive thought combined with a positive emotion over time, and that becomes a habit within your subconsciousness, you will attract to yourself events, situations, people, circumstances that resonate with that level of consciousness. The opposite is clear too. If you operate primarily from a place of fear or anger, okay, that resonates at a certain level of consciousness or calibrates over time as that strengthens within your subconsciousness as a fear or anger habit energy, you will start to attract people, situations, events that are custom designed to trigger that which pre-exists within you. Like attracts like, opposites repel. We'll return to this concept a little bit later. Let's discuss how this energy will be made manifest over the next few weeks in a way that's quite obvious and will occur much more frequently, at least more than random chance would indicate. And we will be able to observe this. And we'll start off more with the negative. And we'll introduce the idea of, okay, Jupiter is square the sun, the 2 biggest bodies in the solar system. Jupiter is known as the king of the gods, and the sun is the king of the sky. And they're in this friction-based aspect known as a square, 90-degree angle. They aren't bad, but they are more difficult or challenging, and that's why I want to start off with the negative. What's going to be the great challenge of this Jupiter-Gemini square sun in Pisces? The sun and Jupiter are very different energies from each other, but what they hold in common is that quality of sheer gravity or gravitas, okay? And stating it more negatively, both of these planets are vulnerable to states of consciousness associated with hubris, pride, and egoism. Now, Jupiter being in Gemini, this is connected to egoism associated with our thoughts, and in the case of Jupiter, ideals and beliefs. Now, Gemini more neutrally represents thoughts and ideas spoken or written out into the world. And how accurate those thoughts and words are is dependent upon how clear the perception of reality of the individual is that's expressing those ideas. And then Jupiter in Gemini represents our faith, belief, and idealism associated with our Geminian thoughts. Now, if like attracts like, and we look at this more egotistical expression of Jupiter in Gemini associated with idealism and thoughts and the communication of those thoughts, it therefore is going to manifest as the darker manifestation of Sun and Moon in Pisces. Now, one of the darker states of Pisces, it's this one of the signs that's most vulnerable to delusional states of consciousness, which can manifest as deception. Okay. Now, the deception can be deliberate if too much of that devilish kind of egoism has infected the person, but usually most of it is more innocent self-deception. So the big picture idea with Pisces always, whether it's negative or positive, is consciousness is key. Okay. So let's say a person is primarily functioning at that fear level of consciousness. During this time, they are far more likely to believe falsehoods and attract low consciousness Geminian information to themselves because they resonate at that same level of consciousness as the idea is being expressed out there in the world. And this is why people that dwell in fear consciousness, their perception of reality is very easy to manipulate. And there have been many powerful people throughout human history that have leveraged fear and anger as methods to control the populace. And I'll also point out, somebody at the level of fear is far more likely to not believe that which is actual truth. Instead, they will see it as a falsehood because they don't calibrate with it. Like attracts like, opposites repel. Let's look at the opposite side of the coin. You know, somebody who's very spiritually evolved, operating at a very high level of consciousness, you know, the saints of the world. I'm sure they're out there somewhere, you know, there they are, connecting with the purest manifestation of the higher octave expression of Pisces, such as true compassion, unconditional love, bliss, ecstasy, enlightenment, you know, just to name a few. Doesn't mean you can only experience this as a Pisces person, okay? All signs can reach enlightenment, so-called. But Pisces does put a particular focus as an evolutionary path towards sprouting those angel wings, to ascend, to grow closer to God, or whatever language you want to use. The path of the mystic archetype emphasizes that path more so than others. So these more saintly personalities out there would resonate with actual truth and be more immune to deception and falsehood, and also have a cleaner, clearer perception of reality. So one of the primary evolutionary challenges for humanity, at least during this Pisces season, this is really center stage, is basically deception abounds. And this deception, this is, you know, again, shadow side Pisces, the sign of deception, in a square to Jupiter and Gemini. This deception is fueled by delusional ideals that are far from an alignment with actual truth and will drive us further apart from actual love, connection, and unity consciousness. Now, the question becomes, how do we work with that on a personal level? I mean, there's many ways to work with this category of events on a personal level, but just connecting it to this idea I presented here, the darker side of the force, if you will. One way you can work with it, you know, again, consciousness is key. The primary evolutionary path for so much Pisces energy, especially with Neptune in Pisces, is this process of enlightenment. I know that's an abstract notion, but it is the essence of Pisces. It's the sign of spiritual growth. So to focus on one's spiritual growth so that you have this goal of raising your consciousness to the level where like attracts like, where you'll automatically resonate with actual truth in a more powerful way and be more immune to the deception. Another great challenge here is addiction. Both Pisces and Jupiter are vulnerable to addiction. Too much of a good thing becoming a bad thing and kind of checking out. And you combine water with air in addiction to what? Well, primarily technology. Here, Pluto's in Aquarius, cementing us into this Aquarian age, this technological revolution. People just can't take their eyes off their devices. This will be even more obvious over the next few weeks. So Pisces, ultimately about the exploration of consciousness. Is it check in, navigate the subjective in a healthy, more powerful way, or check out through numbing ourselves? That's an evolutionary question. So far, I've been talking a lot about the negative. What about the positives? The positives abound during this time as well, equally so. So Jupiter, one of the most powerful ways it can manifest, this is a very inspirational planet. The king of the gods, the good king, likes to give us gifts, inspiring ideas that fuel our ideals, our faith, our belief. And ideas is really key here. So the planet of inspiration in Gemini, the sign of ideas, in aspect to Pisces, the visionary archetype. So people across the planet, again, I'm always generalizing with these videos here, above what would be considered normal or random chance will receive those light bulb moments. Now, we'll talk a little bit more how you can tap into that season of inspiration that we find ourselves in, but that's the idea, visionary ideas. For example, let's say, keep your eyes peeled. I mean, this is a dangerous thing because predictive astrology is so dubious, but it's worth having some fun with it, putting it on the table. Here we are in this technological revolution, the Aquarian age, Pluto finally in the sign for the next 2 decades. Okay, visionary ideas connected to technology. We've had a variety of scientific breakthroughs over the last 100 years that have proved some things that the mystics have been saying for hundreds, if not thousands of years, where science is finally catching up with consciousness. And this is something I talked about in my Pluto and Aquarius video a couple months ago. I highly recommend that video too. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the near future we had some breakthrough in physics, or, you know, the thing is with the technology, it's evolving so rapidly. I think we're going to evolve into some technology that can detect these higher levels of consciousness and improve some of the concepts I've even been laying out in this video. I'm not saying that's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, but as Pluto is in Aquarius for the next 2 decades, that's one thing I expect to happen. But we may have this, again, new beginning, little baby steps, look for breakthrough in science regarding the concept of consciousness. It'll be interesting to see if it happens. So what about working with this class of events on a personal level in your own evolutionary journey? Well, just piggybacking on the idea I just presented, this is a deeply visionary time, okay? New ideas, light bulb moments are trying to flow into you and through you. Where does inspiration come from? I would argue from higher dimensions of reality, okay? So the question is, how do you, on a personal level, claim that? Well, it comes down to spending some minutes daily, ideally, in theta state or deep trance or meditation, where you position your body, mind, and spirit in such a way to become fertile ground for these inspirational ideas trying to pour into you. So obviously with Pisces, especially with Neptune and Pisces, meditation and spiritual development is key. You know, that's how you can cut through all the noise. That's how you can cut through all the delusion to actual truth as you cleanse your perception of reality with a daily meditation practice, you know, whatever that means for you. Now, circling back to this concept of water and air or higher dimensions of reality or the subjective during this new moon phase of new beginnings, a good evolutionary question you can ask yourself over the next few days is, what states of consciousness would I like to experience more? What emotions would I like to experience more in combination with thoughts? And that's another idea between the thought and emotional body. Many mystics call them elementals. We have thought elementals and emotional elementals. And you can't have a thought without a little bit of emotion, and you can't have emotion without a little bit of thought. They're deeply interconnected with each other. But with so much water here, I love the idea of crafting with the intention of the mind, there's Gemini, emotional states of consciousness that you would like to experience more and more moving forward, creating that new beginning. Now, it's not a new emotion. All humans experience all emotions at one time or another, so it's nothing you're completely unfamiliar with. But it's like, what emotional state have I felt disconnected from? And then how can I leverage meditation to create that sort of, let's say, emotional attractor field within my subconsciousness to attract to myself more of that emotional state moving forward? So here's the metaphor. This is actually a true story about me. Many years ago, I wanted to experience more higher states of joy and bliss. And one of the ways I thought about doing that, or experience I'd like to have, is laughing hysterically with friends or family. The kind of laughter I'm talking about, where, it's just gut busting, belly aching, crying, just pure hilarity, fun, joy. And I hadn't had that experience in a long time. So for every day for 30 minutes, I would visualize in a meditative state myself laughing hysterically with friends and family. It didn't take long. Within about a week, those circumstances, those events started to occur in my life. And that's not something you can really force. I would just be doing something pretty mundane throughout my day, but somehow it would hit somebody's funny bone, like one of my coworkers. And here they are laughing hysterically. Pretty soon, me and all my coworkers are laughing, and we don't really know why. And I continued to do the meditation, creating that strong attractor field. And that started to happen so frequently every single day that I had to stop the meditation because it became a problem. Laughing too much became a problem. So that's kind of a funny story. But this is an example of me, mind over matter, mind over experience, creating an intention. I want to experience this emotion. I used air or the mind to visualize it. And as I was visualizing it, I felt that experience of joy in my own heart. And I focused on that visualization once a day for 20 or 30 minutes. And it's so magical. That's Jupiter's gift, the king of the gods, the planet of magic. If you create that strong intention with some inspiration, whatever the emotional state is, you will create more of that in your life. You're creating a new beginning within the subjective, leveraging the power of one's consciousness. That's a very powerful way of working with Pisces interacting with Jupiter in Gemini. These are the core evolutionary intentions, with the goal being to expand our consciousness.